Hey everyone, my name is Mel, and I'm extremely excited to be able to share my story on here and honored that they reached out to me and to invite me on. On paper, I'm a lot of different things. I lead a team of rock stars at a company that helps people in pain get back to normal naturally, avoid surgery, pharmaceuticals, and injections. And I'm also an ultramarathon runner and run for passion. And one of the things I was asked to share about this was some of my personal experience because I've gone through a lot of hard times in life and challenging times, whether it's been voluntarily or involuntarily. And that's taught me a lot about myself and just self growth. And I think beyond paper, that's something I'm extremely passionate about. And a person I am is believing in always learning, always figuring out how to improve yourself and figuring out new ways to know yourself too. I think we become disconnected from who we are, what triggers us, what lights us up, what makes us happy, what makes us sad, how to work through those two are the things that help during that time. It's a lot of information. It's actually really hard work. And for me, there's been different channels. Ultra running has been one of the biggest ones in order to speed up that growth, I would say. And part of this time, there's been a lot of things that have been out of our control, and it's tough. And for me, one example is I had a bunch of races scheduled for this year I was extremely excited about. And races really helped me stay on track for my training because I think in the morning, early, it's 4 a.m., it's dark, it's cold, it's raining, and I wouldn't want to get out of bed. I also think, well, I've got this race coming up and it's going to be a lot easier getting my butt out of bed and going and training right now versus showing up at that start line and not being ready and struggling during that. So without races, I was scared that, hey, where's this motivation going to be to still continue to work on my health? And honestly, ultra running is a lot more mental than physical. And I had to cross things off. I had to cross off a lot of races, everything from local here into Canada to one of my bigger races that was supposed to happen in August in Georgia, Europe, and deferring that to 2021. And instead of just crossing off the list, the thing I learned was to pivot. And I've learned this before in life is instead of pausing when plan A doesn't go accordingly, or even worse, stopping, is learning to pivot. So, hey, it's okay that my initial plan of what this is supposed to look like, how it's supposed to go, and the result wasn't accurate. And honestly, a lot of times it's not going to be, especially if you haven't done it before, or there's things like, a pandemic hit in 2020 and therethere's things out of my control. Instead of just crossing those things off on your goals list, figure out what you can replace them with. So for instance, for me, it would look like creating my own one-person races. So I guess I'll be like the winner and loser of it. But the biggest thing with it was I still wanted to challenge my body, run long distances so I could get that self-growth I get from them and work through some of those mental roadblocks that really come out during running long distances for me. And so that looks like figuring out my own trail races to run, and I create them myself. And so one of those looks like I'll probably be running local around one of the big local lakes in the area I live in later in the year. And that'll be something I continue to train towards and work towards because that lights me up. And that's part of one of my passions. And because there's things during this time that have caused things to get canceled, air travel, everything like that, that doesn't mean I need to give up on my passions. It just might look like I need to go after them a certain way that I haven't done before. And that's okay. The other big thing with just looking at myself and talking with others during this time, whether it's my team or other people that are in the sport with me, is this concept of fail forward and excuses. It's a great time to have a lot of excuses to slow down, to stop, just to defer it to another time, wait it out, sit back, and that's okay, right? But if you do really want to continue going after your goals and you're extremely passionate about something, it's also time to step up and go full throttle to it. Because there is going to be things, especially if you're in an area that is competition, where competitors may do that, versus if you start going full steam ahead and using it as a time to experiment more, as a time to focus more because there's less distractions, then you can come out the end even stronger. And so that's something I would recommend, is figuring out those things in your life right now where you did decide to pause. You did decide just to strike through that goal because it wasn't a good timing, anything like that, and figure out instead how can you pivot that? What's something you can write in replacement of that that's still going to fire you up and work towards that why why did you create planning in the first place? And even though planning is scratched out, what does plan B look like? That's still tied to that same why. It's still going to fire you up. And it's out there. You're just going to have to get creative. You're going to have to think outside the box and not be afraid of it either, and not use excuses, and tap in again to that why. Because when times get tough, when you're in times of failure or anything like that, if you have a strong enough why, that's going to push you back up on your feet and keep moving you forward. So hopefully that helps. That's something I really believe in, and especially during this time, it's more demanding than ever to figure out ways they can get creative and still work towards your goals. Thank you again for having me on. You guys are more than welcome to reach out to me on my channels. I'm sure it'll be in the comments below. If any of this resonates with you, more questions, would love to hear them. All right, thanks so much.